All right, chapter 8 is on vitamins, and this is a very important micronutrient that our bodies require, but in very, very small amounts. And so we'll be looking at this in this video, and I want to kind of give an introduction to what vitamins are, some basic characteristics. We'll talk about the couple of main groups of vitamins, and then we'll start talking about individual vitamins and what their benefits are, where you find them, what happens if you have too little in your diet, and perhaps even some implications if you have too much in your diet. So let's just start with looking at how you define a vitamin. The one thing to kind of note is that it is a organic compound. That just means that it is basically built upon carbon, hydrogen, oxygen elements. Usually not made by the body in great amounts. Now, there's a couple of exceptions. You may realize that your body does produce a little bit of vitamin D, and of course that is stimulated through sunlight. We'll talk about the effects of vitamin D, how our body's trying to make some of that, what it's used for, and that sort of thing. You can harvest a little bit of vitamin K. You have some natural gut type bacteria that are producing some small quantities of vitamin K, maybe a few other small amounts of certain vitamins, but you're generally not making a lot of these type of organic compounds here. The word vitamin, I don't have it here in the notes, but the word vitamin actually comes from vital amine. Amine is a type of chemical compound group that is usually containing nitrogen, and vital means that it's necessary for the body to have. They've kind of gone away with that type of a description, but the name kind of stuck. It's a vitamin. It's needed for our bodies. So where do we find it? Well, we'll talk about certain vitamins where they're commonly found. Of course, they're going to be found in things like fruits and vegetables that we have, and certain fruits and vegetables are going to have higher quantities than others. So we'll look at that as well as we go through. One thing is that vitamins, if you don't have the proper amount, can actually cause some type of deficiency. If that particular vitamin is missing from your diet, or you're not able to absorb that particular vitamin in your diet, then you may have some type of deficiency. And the other thing about it is a vitamin doesn't necessarily cure a disease per se, but it can restore a disorder or cure a disorder if that disorder is caused by the lack of or deficiency of a particular vitamin. So it can restore good health if the problem was caused by a deficiency in a particular vitamin. So the next question is, we kind of understand a little bit about what a vitamin is, but now what do vitamins do? And so they do many things really in the body. And we'll see some examples and specific examples as we go through. Some of them actually work as a hormone. Hormones are chemicals in the body that go into the bloodstream, and they have different effects on different cells in our bodies. And so vitamin D is one of those. We'll get to vitamin D a little bit later. But vitamin D helps our body to kind of maintain a good calcium balance. It helps us to retain calcium, which is a very important mineral for our bodies. And so it kind of helps our bodies retain calcium by programming the intestines and programming the sending signals to the kidneys to retain as much of that calcium as it can. Definitely, vitamins participate in chemical reactions, especially energy related chemical reactions. And so there's a whole group of vitamins that you probably know a little bit about, the B vitamins. There's many different variations of B vitamins or types of B vitamins. Most of those have something to do with our metabolism, metabolic, chemical, energy related type reactions. Vitamins themselves don't add to or provide energy. In other words, we're not using vitamins to digest and to extract any ATP directly from them like you would something like glucose, but they are involved in energy-based type reactions. And so they are critical for those type of reactions, even though they're not the actual source of that energy. They also help in different body processes, cellular processes, whether it's cell division, the cell growth and the cell development of cells, just helping our tissues grow, mature, develop, multiply as needed. And so if you don't have the correct vitamins in place, you may have problems, for example, healing a particular wound, because that requires cell division. If you've got a cut somewhere and it cuts into your epithelial tissue on the outside of your skin, or if it cuts into the collagen tissue that you have in your dermis in your skin, you got to have vitamins there to try to help in that repair process. And so a lot of body processes require vitamins to help those physiological functions. We're not going to go through all of this now, but this is kind of a nice little quick snapshot. This diagram that's in your textbook, a little quick snapshot. It kind of summarizes some main categories of functions and kind of list out those main vitamins that have some impact on that. So for example, for our bones, obviously we need calcium for our bones. And so our bones have collagen fibers there, protein fibers that are there. And so these particular vitamins really help to maintain our overall bone health, strength, and composition of our bones. Again, all of these listed here for energy and metabolism are in the B vitamin category, right? Blood clotting needs requires vitamin K. It's one of the clotting factors. In addition to a lot of the proteins, you actually have vitamin K as well. Amino acid metabolism, again, you got all these B vitamins that are listed here. Antioxidants, we're going to talk about that word today. Growth and development, red blood cell formation. So these vitamins help in the process of making red blood cells. And then our immune system requires certain vitamins as well. And again, we're going to go through some of these, perhaps not all of these B vitamins. This is kind of a list of those B vitamins as they are needed in the process of energy metabolism. And again, we're not getting ATP energy directly from these vitamins, but they do play a role in that pathway. So for example, if you have a monosaccharide, that's a simple sugar like glucose, and you want to convert that into energy, eventually our output here down at the bottom, this is basically the end of our cell respiration equation there. You're exhaling out some CO2 and you're producing a little bit of metabolic water, and you're making that ATP energy. Well, to get to that point, you need some B vitamins. If you're digesting fats, you got to have some B vitamins to help in those chemical reactions. If you're taking amino acids, which are the building blocks of proteins, you can also take amino acids and convert that into energy. And so that again requires some vitamins as well. One of the things that you do hear about occasionally, maybe you've heard of this, is what's called a radical, or what's called a free radical. You may have heard of the term on the next couple of slides, called an antioxidant. We're going to talk about that word as well, but a radical is basically something that has the ability to remove or disrupt the electrons in particular atoms. It goes down to the atomic level. Any type of oxidizing agent, as it says here. What that means for us is that an oxidizing agent, a radical, can create a problem with the atomic structure of different elements, which is not good news for biological organisms, because it makes those tissues perhaps damaged, or those cells damaged, or even down to the DNA. It can actually damage the structure of the DNA. So these types of radicals can actually cause damage into our DNA. If that's the case, there's a possibility it could stimulate some type of mutation. Of course, your DNA does have some DNA repair mechanisms kind of in place, but that doesn't always work. And so you may end up with some type of mutation that gets passed on to the next cell, and that could lead to some type of cell cycle problem, potentially even some type of tumor or cancerous type uncontrollable cell cycle division. It could lead to a problem with a protein. It could lead to a problem with some of our lipids or fatty acids. And so these radicals, as they're called, damage the cell structure at the atomic level by essentially taking out, removing some of the electrons there. The figure here, 8.3, it's like a radical almost is like an arrow that shoots into that structure down to its cellular level, down to its atomic level even, and causes some kind of damage. So if you can imagine something that hits our DNA strand, causing it to be disrupted, hopefully it gets repaired, but if it doesn't, it passes that damage to the next cell in line whenever it goes through replication. It could damage this is supposed to be like a phospholipid that we have in our cell membrane. So it could damage the phospholipid structure that we have in our cells, even down to the protein level. So those are radicals. They have the ability to literally change the electron configuration inside of our cells, inside of our atoms. But so what we need to combat that is something that has extra electrons that can be donated over to this free radical to try to stabilize it. And so that's called an antioxidant. And so these are chemicals that have extra electrons that they can provide to basically, kind of calm down that radical, stabilize it so it's not reacting and trying to, hit our DNA or protein or lipids or whatever. So again, you may have heard of this term here, antioxidants. You may realize that we find antioxidants in some of the foods that we eat. Sometimes you hear about this in pharmaceuticals because they try to, kind of market this as an anti-aging type strategy. And so, pharmaceuticals try to put this in different ointments or lotions and things. And because there's some research that suggests that free radicals causes some premature damage to cells and can lead to almost like a premature aging of our skin, of our tissues and things. Certain fruits, especially, are particularly high in antioxidants, like berries. Berries, for example, blueberries, raspberries. These have cranberries. These have a little bit higher content of antioxidants, which are very helpful for us. Some vitamins have antioxidants, which is why this little section was there. Some vitamins, and we'll get this. We'll see those examples as we go through. But for example, vitamin C that we find naturally in citrus fruits, that vitamin C works as an antioxidant, or at least partly does. It has extra electrons in its configuration that it can supply to these free radicals to try to stabilize them, calm them down so they're not very reactive anymore. The next question is, where do we get vitamins from? We already found out that they're found naturally in foods that we eat. Obviously, fruits and vegetables are the best source really for these vitamins. And of course, take a look at any supplement aisle. It doesn't matter where you go, where you do your shopping at. Take a look at any supplement aisle. You're going to find all kinds of vitamins provided in some kind of supplement. Sometimes you'll see these isolated, so you can just get a bottle of vitamin C tablets or supplements, or a bottle of vitamin D. Sometimes you'll see, and many of you may be taking something that's called a multivitamin. They've got many different vitamins kind of put together in a single pill or tablet form. Or you can get those that are metabolic in nature. So 3 or 4 different B vitamins that are kind of grouped together. So you're getting multivitamins at the same time. So of course we ingest vitamins. We take them into our bodies. The foods that we eat, the drinks that we drink, juices, milk, they're going to have vitamins, or they're going to be, we'll talk about this in a little bit, they're going to be supplemented. They're going to be fortified with vitamins. Okay, we'll see that word in a few minutes. I mentioned it briefly. Sometimes we do have some natural gut bacteria that do produce, it's almost like a waste product, I guess, for the bacteria. Biotin, that's a B vitamin, and then vitamin K. And they produce this naturally based on their metabolic pathways, and then our bodies will absorb that and actually utilize it. All right. And so, we talked about before, maintaining a good, healthy bacteria in our gut is very important. That's why the probiotics and prebiotic categories are very important to kind of maintain overall gut health. And again, our body's able to produce some quantities of vitamin D that does require some kind of starting materials. It does require energy from sunlight. We do make a little bit of niacin, but again, very small amounts of vitamins really being produced naturally by the body. So it is very important to get vitamins in the foods that we eat. I mentioned this just a minute ago. We may have seen these words before: enrichment and fortification. And so, during the processing of foods, we hear about processed foods a lot, but during that processing of foods, especially when you think of grains, you lose a lot in that process, or in that refinement process. You can lose a lot of those very beneficial nutrients, especially the vitamin categories, just by harvesting or refining that. So, for example, this is a little image here of a grain. This is from the Whole Grains Council website, wholegrainscouncil.org, and you can see the three main parts of a grain, like a wheat grain, right? And so the outside layer is called the bran layer. The large inner portion here is called the endosperm, and then you've got a germ layer. Whenever the refinement process takes place, this bran and a lot of the germ layer is removed, and you're left with the endosperm layer. And so if you think about wheat, for example, and you have like white wheat bread, then that's going to be mostly this endosperm area, high in carbohydrates. You got some protein there, of course, but it turns out that a lot of the vitamins are located in the germ layer and also in the bran area here. And so that's why a lot of nutritionists suggest, making sure your grains that you're eating are whole grains, and that includes the whole kernel. That includes the grain and the germ layer here, and that includes a lot of vitamins there. Anytime you see the word enrichment, though, it means that they've added back to that particular grain some of the vitamins or minerals that were originally present, but now have been lost because of the refinement process. So, for example, a lot of these B vitamins, thiamine, riboflavin, niacin, folic acid, and then the mineral iron, a lot of times are added back to grains, and that's called enrichment. Now, that's a little different than what's called fortification. Anytime you add a nutrient to something that it doesn't normally have, right, to a food product that it doesn't normally have, that's called fortification. So start looking for this word. You'll see this, like if you look at a box of cereal, many times you'll see it's fortified with, particular minerals, especially such as iron. Iron is not normally found in grains in your cereal, but if you look on the box, sometimes they'll say, hey, this is fortified with iron. They've artificially added iron to that particular product. You'll see this in juices a lot of times. Orange juice doesn't normally have very much vitamin D. And so a lot of times you can buy orange juice that's fortified with vitamin D. They've artificially added vitamin D to that food product that wasn't normally there. Okay. We're going to mention the two categories here, and then we'll pause this video and kind of look at these on the next video. But generally, you have two major categories of vitamins: A, D, E, and K. The first category here includes A, D, E, and K. These are fat soluble. They literally dissolve in lipids or fats. They don't dissolve well in water, and so that gives these particular vitamins some unique properties. That chemical nature helps to define some of the properties that these vitamins have. They're fat soluble. What that usually means is that you store these up a little bit better in the body because they're not dissolving in the water. They're not dissolving well in the bloodstream, but they do dissolve and store in the body's tissues because you do have lipids stored in the body. You do have adipose or fat storing tissue in the body. So anywhere you find lipids, you can store up these types of fat soluble vitamins. One kind of downside is it may be possible, and it has been possible to have too much of certain vitamins, and they actually become too concentrated in certain tissues that they actually reach a toxic level. And so even though we think of vitamins as 100% safe, we do have to be careful about, how much we're taking in, especially if you're, don't think about how much you're naturally taking in versus if you're taking some type of supplement along the way. And so all of those A, D, E, and K group vitamins, they store up in the body longer because they're lipid soluble. They're a little harder to break down as well. And so again, they remain in the body a little bit longer compared to the water soluble vitamins. That would be all of the B vitamins. There's a big list of those. And then vitamin C, they're all water soluble, the B vitamins and vitamin C. That just means they dissolve well in water, in water-based fluids. They dissolve well in the bloodstream. They get transported very easily. They get broken down a little easier. And so they're excreted from the body a little bit faster. So you don't store up these as much as you do the fat-soluble ones. And so another thing to kind of think about, anything that we ingest, eat in the body, it's partly all about digestion, but we also have to think about, well, how is that food being absorbed? And so the same thing for vitamins. How are we absorbing those vitamins? Are we getting the most out of it, or is some of it being wasted? And so again, our small intestines do some things for us. They're going to be, finishing out any digestion that needs to take place. You've got digestive enzymes going into the intestines to kind of finish digestion, but that's also the site of most of our absorption. And so our vitamins get absorbed there as well. There are some examples where our body is kind of programmed to and really starts to absorb vitamins at a higher rate. We're going through different growth phases as we grow. You think of children, infancy, even in adolescence, they kind of have growth spurts. Any of these growth spurts, they're using up vitamins, or they're processing, they're doing all these, the tissues are growing, you're going through cell division faster, you're producing chemicals a lot faster, hormones, whatever. And so, yeah, you're going to need some vitamins in higher quantities there. Pregnancy, lactation, other examples of when the body's putting more demand on some of its resources. Okay. And we already mentioned that the fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K get absorbed into our dietary fat and can be stored there pretty easily. Couple of tips here: preserving the vitamin content of food, just as we think about food preparation. We probably do most of this anyway. Avoid buying wilted, bruised, shriveled produce. Fresh is always best if we can. Be careful about how much water we're cooking, especially vegetables in and things, because if you cook with a lot of water and then you strain something, or you're dumping out the water, a lot of the vitamin content kind of goes with the water, especially, again, those water-soluble vitamins like vitamin C and the B vitamins, because they're going to be cooked out in the water content, and then we're discarding that water. So look for ways to prepare foods, vegetables, either in a raw state, or you're maybe steaming them, cooking them with small amounts of water, steam, and that'll help to conserve some of that natural vitamin content that's there. Avoid cutting foods that will be cooked into smaller pieces. The idea here is if it's pre-cut and you've got a lot of small pieces, you've got a lot of you'll have more surface area exposed to that cooking method. It's kind of the idea. And so they suggest using quick cooking methods. Microwave is a good thing. Steaming is good for this as well, and then stir frying. Right. Avoid overcooking foods, just to try to maintain as much vitamin content in the foods that we eat as we can. Just a couple of tips there. All right, what we're going to do in the next video is we're going to start in on section 2. We're going to look at the fat-soluble vitamins, starting with A, D, E, and K. There is a nice table, table 8.2 in the textbook and the ebook. You can take a look at that. Kind of summarizes the main vitamins there, A, D, E, and K, and some of their main characteristics. And our first vitamin that we'll look at will be vitamin A. And like I said, the next video will kind of explore this. In each one, we'll try to look at just a few things that stand out about each vitamin and any deficiency disorders that may arise if you don't have enough in your diet. All right, thanks, guys.